This is a video about the course outcomes for English 219, and I'm just going to go through each of them. I'll deal with some of them together to talk about the major purposes that we hope to accomplish in this course. I'll try and give examples when possible to demonstrate the basic principle of each of these outcomes. So the first one is to analyze short nonfiction prose pieces. Kind of jargony there. The simple way to think about this one is that in writing we generally have two major categories: fiction and nonfiction. For some of you, English will have been heavily dominated by fiction, by stuff that's made up, inventive, imaginative. So Shakespeare and novels and short stories and stuff like that. Didn't really happen, okay? You got wizards, you got dragons, you got monsters, you got whatever flying around in there, and it's not real, okay? That's not what we're doing in this course. We're dealing with the other side, nonfiction, the stuff that is real. So some of you will come at this course thinking that it's all about stories and it's about literature, but it's not. Okay, it's about nonfiction prose. So the simplest example I can think of with nonfiction prose is newspaper articles. This happened in the real world. Here's the who, what, where, when, why, how of what happened. And it gives us all the details and facts and description and whatever. Okay, so it's real stuff that happened. So why are we studying this? Because this is what academics at universities do, is they think about the world, they think about problems, they think about solutions to problems, they think about new directions in research. How can we, invent a better widget or mousetrap, whatever, to make the world a better place? And so we're dealing with real world problems, real world solutions, so we need facts and data, information, all this kind of stuff. So this is why we read nonfiction prose in a course like English 219, is how do we do that? And how do we do that effectively? Okay. The second one, to make judgments based on criteria. Criteria likely has the same root as critique. That is, to make evaluations, to make judgments. So when I make a judgment, what are the criteria that I use to make a judgment? So a simple example would be a movie. If I go see a movie, do I like that movie or do I not like that movie? Well, it depends on the kinds of movies that I like. So I need to establish my criteria to make a judgment about a movie. And we do this in the process of selecting a movie. Do you want to go see an action movie? Do you want to go see a romance movie? Okay? And those are the criteria, action versus romance. So when we see a movie and there's lots of car chases, do we like that movie or do we not like that movie? So it depends what we think about car chases, okay? Maybe I like car chases, maybe I don't like car chases. So the same criteria, car chases, can lead to a different outcome in judgment. I didn't like that movie because of the car chases. I did like that movie because of the car chases. So sometimes matters of taste can influence the criteria that we use to evaluate and make judgments. And we can always push these things a little bit farther. We can always say, well, why do you, person A, like car chases, and you, person B, not like car chases? What are your criteria for evaluating car chases? So now we're not evaluating the movie necessarily anymore. We're evaluating car chases. And so there's always ways to think about further evaluation of particular topics. The third and the fourth ones, I'll deal with them together. Apply strategies for planning written arguments and apply strategies for drafting arguments. So we plan arguments and we draft arguments. So we have something that we want to say. We want to make an argument, okay? And a lot of this course is about argument, about stating a position, about saying what we believe to be the case and why other people should agree with us. It's about persuasion. Okay? That we want to convince people that our point of view is correct or right, or that they should believe us in what we say. Okay? Because nobody wants to believe fake stuff, right? So how do we plan that, and how do we draft that? How do we write it up? And so understanding how we make judgments, how we establish criteria, helps us to formulate ways of approaching a topic. Okay? And so this is part of the planning and development stage of writing. We know what we want to say. How do we organize our thoughts so we can say it effectively? Excuse me. That leads us to The next couple of outcomes, which is about revision. Okay? So the previous two were about planning and drafting. The next two are about revising. Now that we've written some stuff down, is it any good? How do we go back and evaluate it? So notice that we're using our own principles of evaluation on our own writing. So the first one is revise written work that is unified, developed, organized, and coherent. So this is about organization and structure. Is it comprehensible? The second one, revise written work to eliminate errors in diction, phrasing, and sentence structure. That is about the quality or correctness of your writing. Okay? So these two go hand in hand, in my mind, is that we can be the smartest person in the world. We can have the best ideas in the world. But if we can't articulate those ideas clearly and correctly, nobody can understand what we're saying. Okay? So good thinking and good expression go together. There's a famous quote, I think it's by philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein. He said, anything that can be thought clearly. And anything that can be written clearly. Okay? So that's one of the idealistic goals that we have in the class, is how to think well and how to write clearly. The next one is to summarize a written argument. A summary, it's going to be the first major assignment that you do in the course, and they're deceptive. I'll tell you that up front. A lot of people think summaries are easy. I'll just get the gist of something. But writing a good summary is actually quite challenging. Many of you will never have written a summary before, but you've certainly encountered them in various forms. So something like a review, let's take a movie review as a simple example, is a kind of summary. This movie has lots of car chases in it. Well, I don't want to see that because it has too many car chases, right? And so it gives us a boiled down version of what's going on. But what we want to do in summary is we want to simplify without being simplistic. That's the difficulty in summary, is we want to retain complexity in a shorter amount of space. Okay? And I'll talk more about that when we get to that assignment. But what this enables us to do, why it's part of the course, is it enables us to take something that's longer and understand all the rhetorical things that are happening, all the writing things that are happening, all the criteria, all the judgments that are happening, so we understand, we have a good grasp of that thing. Then we can take another thing and do a summary of that. And we can have 2 or 3 or many different viewpoints, and we can understand how they all work in order to synthesize them and make further judgments about them. So this is about data collection and understanding data. The next one is identify and define major rhetorical strategies. Rhetorical strategies are, it's just a fancy way of saying ways of writing. What kinds of writing can we expect to encounter in the world? So for example, one really common rhetorical strategy is definition. That someone will take a term and say, what does this term mean? Let's understand feminism. Let's understand environmentalism. Let's understand kids these days. You know, and they'll apply a definition, often quite a lengthy, perhaps complicated definition of something in the world. Other rhetorical strategies might include something like cause and effect. What are the causes of poverty? What are the effects of poverty? What are the causes of addiction? Why do people get addicted to something? What are the effects of addiction? And what we find when we start analyzing these rhetorical strategies is we often get confused with the causes and effects. Okay? That we might say, well, why does somebody get addicted? Okay? Is it because they tried drugs? And then we quickly realize that some people get addicted to drugs. That's actually an effect of drug use. It's not a cause of drug use. Why did someone use in the first place? It's not because they like drugs, because they've never tried them before. And so often we find that the cause and effect chain gets polluted if we don't think clearly about a particular subject. And the last one is to acquire, incorporate, and document secondary sources in written work. The simple word for this is research. How do we do research? Okay, and there's lots of discussion these days about research. I'll say more about it when we get to the research essay, but the quick and dirty version is this, is that we are, many of us, constantly connected online. We're constantly bombarded by information. The internet is supposed to be, the information age and all this kind of stuff. Simple gathering of information is one thing. Doing strategic, disciplined, meticulous research is another. Looking at a bunch of Facebook or Instagram posts is not research. That's browsing social media. So what's the difference between collecting information and doing research? Okay? There's good research, there's bad research, and we'll talk about the different ways of doing that. So that's an overview of the major outcomes of the course. So to tie it back into the overall trajectory of the course, essay writing and critical reading is how do we read sources for information to understand their arguments, and how do we respond to those intelligently, coherently, and clearly.